The most perilous crisis since the Cuban Missile Standoff, yet this time, the danger cannot be seen or touched. A seismic shift has erupted at the heart of American power. What has taken the United States more than 200 years to build, a sense of untouchable dominance, a bastion of national security, has been rattled not over years or months, but in less than 24 hours. This is not just a blip on the radar. The shock is as sudden as a flash of lightning on a clear day. The epicenter of this upheaval is not a famous capital or a sprawling metropolis, but an unremarkable, long-ignored port on Nicaragua's Caribbean shore. Bluefields, for generations, a backwater for smugglers, banana traders, and the occasional passing pirate, now transformed overnight into the world's most dangerous flashpoint. American intelligence and military leaders, long accustomed to having their finger on the pulse of global events, have been caught flat-footed. The adversary moved in utter silence, and by the time the alarm sounded, the impossible had already happened. It all began with a single image, a satellite photo, at first glance as routine as thousands that had come before. Yet within its pixels, the seeds of panic were sown. In the highest chambers of Washington, from the windowless offices of the Pentagon to the Situation Room in the White House, security chiefs stared at screens, struggling to process what they saw. One image, a few lines and shadows, had torn a hole in the armor of a superpower. The stakes could not be higher. America's sense of invincibility, generations in the making, shattered. The myth of perfect security, exposed. In a single sweeping day, every flaw in the armor of a superpower has been laid bare for all the world to see. The world's faith in American deterrence, and the order that has depended on it for almost 2 centuries, now stands in jeopardy. But how could a neglected outpost, dismissed by experts and policymakers for decades, become the tip of the spear in a challenge to American supremacy? How did a quiet, crumbling Caribbean town become the axis on which the New World Order pivots? The answer is as chilling as it is sobering. An invisible alliance, moving beneath the surface, has rewritten the rules. The age of silent, deep ocean deterrence has dawned, not with a thunderclap, not with a declaration of war, but with the ghostly precision of adversaries who never needed to fire a shot. But what did those secretive satellite images actually show? And how did the world's greatest intelligence machine miss the warning signs? To understand, we have to go back to the beginning, before the crisis erupted, before the world held its breath. Sometimes the edge of the world is exactly where history turns. Bluefields Bay, on Nicaragua's steamy Caribbean coast, was once a mere footnote in the annals of power. Its crumbling port, battered by salt and time, was a refuge for pirates in the age of sail, then a hub for banana barons in the era of gunboat diplomacy. But as the world's harbors grew larger and satellite eyes ever sharper, Bluefields faded into irrelevance, its docks empty, its stories forgotten by those who wielded power. For decades, the port was a ghost. In the early 20th century, American Marines landed there to protect the interests of United Fruit, but even then, it was a sideshow. By the dawn of the 21st century, the banana boats were gone, replaced by rusting hulls and the slow encroachment of mangrove roots. So when Nicaragua's leaders unveiled plans for a grand logistics hub, supposedly just another trade initiative funded by Chinese and Russian billions, few in Washington cared. American analysts scoffed. They remembered other grand schemes in the region, the failed Nicaraguan Canal project, abandoned highways swallowed by jungle, and empty airports whose only passengers were birds. They counted on corruption, bureaucracy, and neglect to swallow the project whole, just as had happened to so many other dreams before. Confidence bred blindness, and that blindness would become a fatal flaw. Almost overnight, the transformation began. Suddenly, Nicaraguan special forces closed off the bay. Chinese engineers, arriving with blueprints and heavy machinery, took command. But their plans were shadowed by Russian military planners, men and women trained not just to build, but to make entire arsenals vanish into the landscape. Construction swarmed beneath a veil of secrecy. Villagers were uprooted with little warning. The skies above Bluefields were declared off-limits to all but military drones and the odd migratory bird. Journalists who asked the wrong questions found themselves escorted out of town, their cameras seized, their notes erased. Officials claimed it was all about trade, a modern shipping center, nothing more. But something monstrous was being born beneath the pretense. Gigantic dry docks, hollowed into the ancient rock, shielded by camouflage netting and reinforced concrete, were ready to swallow submarines the length of city blocks. Missile silos, masked as nondescript warehouses, lined the shore, their doors flush with the soil and painted to match the tropical brush. Everything was hidden in plain sight, right under the gaze of satellites and the ever-watchful CIA. America stayed asleep, lulled by its own certainty. The world's most powerful intelligence networks failed to notice as the old, forgotten harbor became an arsenal, one capable of shifting the balance of power in the Americas overnight. This is not the first time a superpower has misread a quiet backwater. During the Second World War, the British were caught off guard by German U-boat pens built in the French port of Lorient. Decades later, the Soviets constructed entire missile complexes in the Cuban jungle, unnoticed until it was almost too late. Each time, the cost of complacency was measured not just in military terms, but in the anxiety and uncertainty that followed. Just as during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when American U-2 planes first spotted the telltale shapes of missile launchers in the Cuban countryside, the illusion here shatters in an instant, when a junior analyst stumbles across a detail that nobody else saw, a pattern buried in the noise. Suddenly, irrelevant rumors ignite into a national crisis. The White House is forced awake in the middle of the night. In less than 24 hours, centuries of American security doctrine collapse, and the enemy is no longer at the gates, but already inside them. At a windowless Virginia intelligence center, analyst David Chen leans over a flickering monitor. A new satellite pass over Nicaragua appears. At first, routine. But then a shadow beneath the surface catches his eye. What looks like an ordinary port expansion reveals something far more sinister. Hidden submarine pens, carved into the Atlantic coast, their entrances masked by jutting rock and clever camouflage. Massive conduits snake underground, channeling power to unseen chambers. Above ground, the haphazard scatter of warehouses turns out to be nothing of the sort. Each one a hardened missile silo, expertly blended with the terrain. Chen overlays the silhouettes of Russia's most advanced submarines, the Boré and the silent, elusive Yasin class. They nestle into the docks as if custom-built. In a separate layer, he traces out storage signs for Kaliber cruise missiles, Onyx anti-ship weapons, and even the shimmering outlines of Zircon hypersonic arms. The sheer volume dwarfs any conceivable commercial cargo. A chill runs down Chen's spine, for this is not a shipping hub, but a fortress hiding in plain sight. His pulse racing, Chen slams his hand on the secure line. Within minutes, the data leaps up the hierarchy, first to his supervisor, then to a classified conference in the intelligence director's suite, and finally speeding toward the president's desk in the Oval Office. The alarm spreads like a chill. The United States protective shield, painstakingly built over generations, has been ripped away in a single day. What now squats on Nicaragua's Atlantic shore is not a port, but a fortress. The Americans name it Point 77. It is built for war, self-sustaining, armored behind concentric lines of bastion missile batteries and blast-proof barriers. Its existence means Russian submarines can vanish beneath the waves, rearm for months in secret, and then strike anywhere along the American coastline. Fixed defenses, once the backbone of continental safety, are now helpless. In the West Wing, every principal, Secretary of Defense, CIA Director, Joint Chiefs, grasps the new reality in a single glance. 200 years of doctrine, alliances, and early warning systems have become relics. The credibility of a superpower is left smoldering in the glare of a single, undeniable photograph. The world's rules have changed, and no one heard the warning shot. In the Situation Room, The president studies the high-definition image projected on the wall. Advisors hold their breath. Far beneath the waves, a Russian submarine slips away from the Nicaraguan stronghold, vanishing into the Caribbean with unknown intent. As panic ripples through the intelligence community, a single question echoes. How did the world's most sophisticated surveillance apparatus miss this? The race to uncover the full extent of Point 77's threat has just begun. The precedent is haunting. In the 1960s, it was only after a series of U-2 flights that the United States realized the Soviet Union had secret missile sites in Cuba. Now, as then, the realization comes too late for comfort. The difference? The threat today is submerged, mobile, and can strike at a moment's notice anywhere along thousands of miles of unprotected coast. In a moment so quiet it feels unreal, the unthinkable happens. Old certainties dissolve, and the global audience is left to wonder, has the American age ended before their eyes? The Monroe Doctrine, the guiding star of United States security since 1823, has been shattered. For nearly 200 years, America's unbreakable promise stood. The Western Hemisphere was a sanctuary, immune to rival powers, off-limits to foreign militaries. Now, that red line has vanished, erased by a single stroke, replaced by questions Washington never imagined it would face. Suddenly, the United States stands at a crossroads, every path lined with peril. Military retaliation risks a war that could consume continents and lives. Yet, to do nothing is to accept humiliation of the highest order, to watch American credibility collapse in real time. Allies would feel betrayed, adversaries emboldened. The world's most formidable superpower, cornered and exposed. Beneath the surface, the danger multiplies. Russia's Yasin M-class submarine, the so-called black hole of the ocean, lurks unseen in the Atlantic depths. This vessel can vanish from sonar, break through every perimeter, and at any moment threaten American undersea cables, power grids, or even strike at the heart of leadership. The threat is not only physical, but psychological. The United States is vulnerable in ways it has never known. A chilling, encrypted burst from the depths proves the Russians know the precise locations of United States command sites, while their own assets remain invisible. The pillars of American security, intelligence supremacy, control of the seas, technological dominance, have been turned upside down. The message is unmistakable. The playing field has shifted, and the rules have changed. As the world watches, the White House is paralyzed by a perfect trap, a zugzwang, where every move leads to disaster. Diplomacy risks appearing weak. Force risks triggering a global catastrophe. There is no safe precedent to follow, no retreat that preserves dignity. For the first time, America is forced to play defense in its own backyard, and the world senses it. The stakes could not be higher. The credibility of the American superpower, the trust that binds its alliances, the fragile order of the world, all hang by a single fraying thread. One wrong step could trigger not just defeat, but apocalypse. History is replete with moments where a single event erased the assumptions of an era. In 1914, the assassination of an archduke set the world ablaze. In 1941, a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor forced the United States into a war it thought it could avoid. In each case, the world changed overnight, and those caught unprepared paid the price. Yet as dawn breaks over the Potomac, the president gathers his closest advisors. The world expects the usual script, a show of force, a press conference, perhaps even a threat of military retaliation. But this time, the next move will shake the foundations of global power, and no one, not even America's closest allies, is ready for what comes next. As the White House doors close behind them, a new kind of war council begins. The question is not just how to respond, but how to redefine what power means in a changed world. The president consults not just generals, but technologists, cyber warfare experts, and even experts in psychology and game theory. Every scenario is run, from precision strikes to diplomatic isolation, to covert operations deep beneath the sea. Sometimes the answer that changes everything is the one that no one ever hears. As the world braced for missiles, threats, or breaking news, the American president chose a different path. He ignored the rituals of power: no fleets, no bombers, no public warning. Instead, he quietly authorized a top-secret DARPA operation, codenamed Ghost of the Depths. This was not a show of might, but a demonstration of unseen mastery, a move designed for only one audience: the adversary beneath the waves. In the frigid, pitch-black Atlantic, a classified echo protocol was unleashed. It was not a message in words, but in presence. American stealth had just eclipsed Russian silence. Hours passed. Deep below the surface, inside a Russian submarine hidden near Nicaragua, the crew's world turned upside down. On their encrypted consoles, a new transmission appeared. Impossible. Terrifying. It displayed a complete acoustic map of their own submarine. Every weld, every bolt, every delicate adjustment. All of it gathered by American sensors, without ever tripping an alarm. Fear swept through the Russian officers. For years, they had believed their ultra-quiet submarines made them invisible, untouchable. Now, in a single moment, they realized they were exposed. The hunted, not the hunters. The psychological balance that had held for decades cracked. The Americans had rewritten the rules of power, and no one else had even noticed the move. Suddenly, the crisis dissolved. There were no fleets surging toward battle, no speeches, no ultimatums. Only, behind closed doors, a silent understanding. Open war was now obsolete. The battlefield had shifted into shadows and silence, and deterrence itself had vanished beneath the surface. Yet, this silent victory comes with a steep price. The global arms race has moved into the invisible deep. Security now rests not on firepower, but on secrets, on who can hide and who can see. Every new breakthrough risks accident, miscalculation, or escalation that no one can hear coming. The world may now be held together by tension so quiet that it might snap before anyone can respond. What does this mean for the future, for power, for war, and for people like us, who almost certainly will not hear the next warning? Consider this. In the Cold War, the doctrine of mutually assured destruction was enforced by vast arsenals of nuclear weapons, parades of missiles, and the unblinking stare of satellites. Now, the arsenal is invisible, the parade silent, and the stare is often fooled by camouflage and code. The game is more dangerous because the players move in darkness. But the echoes of this confrontation do not fade. They ripple outward, shaping every calculation in Washington, Moscow, and Beijing as the world wonders, what comes after silence? If the most consequential move is the one no one ever sees, what else is unfolding in the deep shadows of our world? For more than 2 centuries, the United States defined power as presence. Flags raised, fleets in the open, lines drawn on maps. In the 19th century, Commodore Perry's black ships forced open the gates of Japan with a show of force. In the 20th century, American aircraft carriers prowled every ocean, their presence a constant reminder of global reach. Yet now, a single covert operation in a forgotten Nicaraguan bay has ended that era. Not with cannon fire, not with a declaration, but with silence. Almost no one saw it happen. Almost no one understood what it meant. The real architects of modern strategy know that the decisive battles are rarely televised or even recognized. Consider the Cold War's Project Azorian, a secret mission to recover a sunken Soviet submarine from the depths of the Pacific. The entire operation was shrouded in secrecy, and its success or failure was not known until decades later. So too here. A port may look like a logistics hub, but beneath it, concrete warrens and steel vaults wait, invisible to all but a handful. Merchant ships drift by, but their holds might shelter submarines, engines silent, hulls hidden, waiting for orders from thousands of miles away. In this world, strength is not found in spectacle, but in secrecy. The winner is not the loudest actor, but the quietest observer, the one who moves without leaving a trace. Now, the ground beneath us has shifted. The very nature of deterrence has changed, slipping from open threats to alliances made in coded whispers, to weapons sleeping under layers of sea and soil, to signals that vanish into encrypted static. The rules that governed the last century, visible force, clear borders, open confrontation, are being erased and rewritten, right now, in languages and codes most will never even recognize. And the stakes? They are nothing less than our sense of safety itself. What truths do we accept, only because they have always been true? If a superpower can be caught off guard by a silent strike, what hope do ordinary people have to see what is coming, when the future moves invisibly beneath the surface? We cannot afford to look away or trust that headlines tell the whole story. The world order has not simply shifted. It may have already changed completely, and most of us have only glimpsed the edge of that revelation. The invisible hands steering distant events can redraw the lines of power closer to home than we dare believe. In this new era of silence, what you do not see can threaten everything you thought was certain. Sometimes the only warning is a fleeting shadow on a satellite screen, a secret that shapes the fate of nations before most people have even begun their day. So what happens now, when the old rules no longer apply and the balance has tipped? The aftermath is already in motion, and the first shockwaves are traveling far beyond the shores of Bluefields. But this moment is not just a warning to governments and generals. It is a lesson for all of us. In a world where the most important moves are invisible, the skills that matter most are not just strength or technology, but vigilance, adaptability, and the willingness to question what seems certain. The future may belong to those who can read the faintest patterns, follow the quietest signals, and prepare for the unexpected. If history teaches us anything, it is that the next crisis will not announce itself in headlines or alarms. It will arrive, as this one did, as a whisper, a detail on a screen, a pattern in the noise, a shadow where there should be none. The world is changing, quietly but irrevocably. We must change with it, or risk being left behind by the silent tide. And so, as the sun sets on a shaken world, one question remains. Will we learn to listen for the footsteps in the deep before they reach our own shore?